Top 10 board game of all time. Let's do this. Starting off this list, I have Champions of Midgard, a worker placement dice rolling Viking game with both expansions. I'm a sucker for a good Viking game, as you'll see later in this video. What I really love about this game is the fact that all the abilities of the Vikings are very different, and when you gain all those dice to go up against an epic battle against a creature and rolling a successful roll to gain all those points. I have so much fun playing this game, and I have so many good memories with it. It's one of the first worker placement games that I played, and till this day I have a lot of fun bringing it to the table. Now let's move on to number 9. Now my number 9 is a very popular game. I'd be surprised if you haven't heard of it, but it is Wingspan, a card engine building game. I find Wingspan an easy game to teach to people, as there's only 4 actions you can do on your turn. It might take a couple turns for someone to get a hang of it, but once you get a hang of it, it's always a good time to bust out and play. I always find new combinations of birds to play in this game. It's a popular hit at game nights, and for that reason, it's at my number 9. I recommend picking up the Oceania expansion, as this gives you a new player board for the birds in the game, and it gets you the food a lot quicker. It adds also nectar to the game, which adds a whole new element of gameplay. And of course, it's about birds, and who doesn't like birds? Now at the end of this video, I am going to have a few honorable mentions to replace some of these games on the list, so stay tuned for that. Now let's move on to number 8. Now number 8 on my list is Ticket to Ride Europe. Now this is a great Ticket to Ride game. This is one of the games that got me in the hobby, and I had to include it on the list. It's great for families, it's great at game nights. Why I picked Europe is because it has those train stations, and the map is a lot more competitive, I find, than in the original game. And if someone blocks your path, you can always use those train stations. I highly recommend you check out Ticket to Ride. Now let's move on to number 7. My number 7 is Jamaica. This is a great racing game for families. I love the artwork in this game. I love the pirate theme. I highly recommend, if you like racing games, give Jamaica a try. It does have a take that element in this game, so keep that in mind, but it wouldn't be a pirate game if it didn't have that. They do have a second edition that's out, so make sure, if this sounds interesting to you, go check that out. Now let's move on to number 6. Smash Up, an absolute blast to play of a deck construction game. There's 2 factions you get in the game, you smash them together, you go head to head against your opponents, and you try to conquer bases. I have so much fun and so much laughs when I play this game, that's why it's my number 6. Now, you might be thinking, Clayton, why are these games so light in components? Well, that's about to change with my number 5. Zombicide Black Plague, a zombie apocalypse happening in a medieval setting. What about that does not sound awesome? It's a dungeon crawl game where you have to kill a lot of zombies. The fact that it's a dungeon crawl game with a medieval setting that you can kill a bunch of zombies was a clear hit for me. That's why it's my number 5. Remember when I mentioned there's going to be more Viking games on this list? Well, this brings me to my number 4. BloodRage. If you like Viking games, then BloodRage is something you have to check out. It's an awesome card drafting area control game with awesome miniatures. You are fighting to the death over 3 decades, and you must die in the most glorious way possible, as Ragnarok is happening all around you. Upgrading your stats, pillaging, combat, quests, and rage. This game is tons of fun. If you love Viking games, this one is my number 1 pick to check out for sure. Now let's move on to number 3. Nemesis, a semi-cooperative horror survival game, done in the best possible way. This game really gives you the horror feeling when you enter a room and you're not sure what's going to happen next. And to add to the horror, you don't know if you can always trust your crewmates. Amazing miniatures, and you never know what's going to happen next in this game. Highly recommend, if you like horror games, Nemesis is a great one to check out. By the way, I did a top 10 horror board game list. I'll have that link down below. Make sure you go check it out after this video. Now let's move on to number 2. If you've been part of this channel so far, by the way, if you haven't, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like if you're enjoying the video. But you already know that I love deck building. And there's one game that I really enjoy that fits the whole Marvel theme really well, and that is Marvel Legendary. This is my number 2 pick because not only is it a fantastic deck building game, but they have a solo mode. You can play as the mastermind if you get the right expansions. It's really, literally the whole Marvel universe inside a box. There's so much content for this game, I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't heard of it already. And it has a huge community on Facebook and Reddit. I highly recommend to go check them out. It's so much fun to play, that's why it's my number 2. Now if Marvel is not your thing, then how about you check out my number 1, sticking with the whole deck building thing, and whether it's in space or a dungeon, if someone brings out Clank, I'm gonna play. I love the push your luck element to it. The further you go down, the more points you get. I always have so much fun playing this game. Everyone who tries it out at game nights always has a blast. That's why it's my number 1 pick. Now let's move on to my honorable mentions. My first one being Scythe to replace Wingspan. It's a great engine building game too, but I have a harder time bringing it to the table. I would also agree Legendary Encounters and Dominion are 2 really great deck building games. However, I'm a geeky dad who likes geeky things, so the Marvel theme kind of fits me really well. That's why it's on my list. As for BloodRage, I did hear that Rising Sun plays a lot like BloodRage, but personally I have not played that yet, so that's why I didn't include it on this list. but if Vikings is not your theme, then I highly recommend to look into that one. Now last off, my honorable mentions has to be Gloomhaven and Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. These are two popular games that I have not yet had a chance to play yet, so that is why they're not on my list. Please let me know in the comment section down below what your favorite top 10 games are. I'm always happy to hear your guys' thoughts. Or let me know what games you recommend. Until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.